Hello everyone, thank you for joining. Today's webinar is Requirements Management for Agile Teams. Uh, within Confluence, integrated with JIRA and GreenHopper, thanks to Wikidsmart handling the integration and enabling the solution. So I'm Andrew Lampett. I'll be kicking off the webinar. I'm joined with Sanjeev Nath, who will be handling the demo and the technical side of the discussion. So here's the agenda we have for you today. I'll take a quick overview of zAgile, the company, and an overview of the Wikidsmart platform, and then how that plays into Agile and requirements management. We'll talk about the strengths of Atlassian products, Confluence, JIRA, and GreenHopper. And then we'll talk about how Wikidsmart specifically helps with Agile practices. And of course, we're going to show a live demo of that. The demo should be about 15 or 20 minutes. Then Sanjeev will hand it back to me for a summary and suggested next steps. So first about zAgile, the company. So zAgile was created with the mission to integrate teams, tools, processes, and knowledge. So first, that was about software engineering. So integrating all the software engineering tools and teams so that everyone could be on the same page, so that managers would have information and execs would have information with respect to what's being done right now, what's being achieved, and how things are tracking against milestones. Also for the purpose of not only achieving reports, but also searching to find particular concepts and also the related tangential concepts. For example, how is this requirement related to a set of tasks or some code or some use cases or stories or epics. So beyond that, though, the platform was created in such a way to be generic so that it's extensible beyond software engineering. In fact, we have solutions that integrate with CRM as well as help desk, and we can go virtually to any other concept and any other domain. So it's quite a generic platform that can extend from software engineering across to your business side in marketing and sales and operations and so forth. There's a look at our partners, both on the technology and the services side. We've received some quite favorable coverage in the press. I invite you to Google zAgile for InfoWorld and SD Times articles. A look at some customers. Our customers range from really small software companies, for example, in the Bay Area and worldwide, as well as to larger organizations worldwide. There's a nice case study, actually, with respect to requirements management. We invite you to check out on our website for SIX, down below there, SIX. They are probably one of the largest financial organizations you might not have heard of. It's formed of 150 of the world's largest banks, and SIX is responsible for the financial infrastructure in Switzerland. So that's the currency markets, the stock exchange, etc. And they actually use Wikidsmart for their requirements management. So now an overview of Wikidsmart. What is it? So it's a couple main concepts here I'd like to cover. The first one of which is an integration platform. So it allows you to integrate your software engineering environment, and that means all the tools that go along with it, whether it's requirements, tasks, tests, code, etc., version control, continuous integration, as well as integration with CRM and help desk. For example, you might want to see help desk tickets and issues from JIRA appear within your Salesforce account, or you might want to see Salesforce information appear within your wiki. Wikidsmart is the integration platform that provides that bi-directional integration of all of your content. Secondly, is a template-based, model-driven composite application platform. So what we mean by that is we're enabling the tools that you already have to be used for much more powerful solutions that span your different tools and applications. So requirements management, in fact, is one example of that. What you're able to achieve is requirements management within your wiki with structured templates that are semantically aware of what that content is and how it integrates and is related to content in JIRA and GreenHopper and whatever other tools you have in your environment. We also provide a number of other solutions out of the box that are listed here as well. So how does Wikidsmart work? It's useful sometimes for people to see visually what's going on to help them better digest what's the power of the solution. So if you look at today's tools and the problems, especially within software engineering, is you have that famous silo of content that's isolated within each of your applications and tools. So here we have some examples shown of Confluence, JIRA, Selenium. It could be many other tools and applications. We just isolated these three to try to keep the concept simple. You've got your front-end GUI shown. I've listed these categories on the left. Your front-end GUI, and then you've got your data store, whether it's a file structure or a repository. And then down below, of course, amongst those things, you have these concepts and features and logic. And there's some bullet items of those examples listed there as well. The idea is essentially you've got a front end and you've got a back end, and you're managing all these kinds of concepts and features. So those things are isolated, okay? They're all living within their own world. And what we'd like to propose is this concept of a knowledge model, okay? Or some people think of it as a graph in a little bit more technical terms. And what this graph, this knowledge model does is it encapsulates knowledge for a given domain. And in this case, we're speaking of software engineering. So all the concepts and how they're related to one another, the people and their roles, so engineers, QA folks, etc., their functions, and the methodologies that are going along with it. So we're not meaning to impose a methodology. Rather, you are free to choose your methodology and ensure that it's followed within your organization. So examples of these domains that are encapsulated within this knowledge model include today software engineering, CRM, and help desk. Of course, you can extend that model to include other domains as well. So visually speaking, here's what it looks like. So that knowledge model that I just described, think of it as this intermediate layer between your GUI and the back end of your various tools and applications. This is a non-invasive intermediate layer. So what it does is it acts as the medium for exchange of information in a contextual way between your different tools and applications, okay? Now, it's important to point out that it's just a medium for exchange. However, each one of the tools that you have will still act as the source of truth for its given domain. So for example, JIRA. JIRA is the source of JIRA's truth, okay? Now, if you want to exchange information between JIRA and Confluence, or between JIRA and Salesforce, or between JIRA and Zendesk, that information flows through this contextual model, this knowledge model that I just described, and it manifests that information in a contextual way for the user, okay? So if you're looking at a requirement, guess what? You can easily see the tasks and links to the code and links to user stories and epics right with that requirement should you choose. So that's the power of what Wikidsmart delivers. It also enables you to drive new solutions like requirements management from within the Confluence wiki. Because remember, this knowledge model encapsulates the concepts of software engineering, including requirements management. So again, we're able to manifest that solution right within the Confluence wiki in a way that's integrated with JIRA. So let's see. And here's another kind of graphical way to show the architecture. So let me describe what you're seeing here. It's pretty colorful, and we're showing lots of things. So on the very top part, we see the different domains. Software engineering, which covers the different areas below it: requirements management, issue tracking, version control, etc. And then on the CRM and help desk side, we have connectors also today for Salesforce and Zendesk. We can expand that to include other connectors as well. So here's what's happening. You've got the knowledge model down below, and that's within what we call the Wikidsmart context server. You can think of it as a middleware, okay? And what's happening is you see that arrow between the Wikidsmart context server and the stuff up at top. It says capture and integrate. So what it's doing is it's importing the contextually relevant information or attributes of these different applications and tools. So we look under requirements management and issue tracking on the upper left. We have connectors for Confluence. We have connector for JIRA. And what happens is we're importing under requirements management, project, requirements, milestone, etc. And for issue tracking or tasks management, we're importing project, component, release, task, issue, etc. Okay. Now what happens then is we bring that information in, we map it together with this software engineering knowledge model that's all ready to go out of the box. Whoops. And then what happens in turn is we're able to drive forward these solutions within your existing applications and tools. So we're speaking today of Wikidsmart PM, which is requirements management, and we're driving a solution of requirements management within Confluence, integrated with JIRA and GreenHopper. For those not aware, GreenHopper is an Agile plugin for JIRA. So we have this whole Agile environment where JIRA and GreenHopper work great today with the content that they're managing, but now you're able to integrate in requirements management and features management and so forth also with those tools and applications thanks to Wikidsmart. So also what you're able to do is, you see that little icon of a dashboard and reports. Now you have a federated view of what's going on across the project, pulling information from Confluence, from JIRA, from GreenHopper, from other tools that you might have, and you're able to expose that information within the wiki or elsewhere. And you can search for a concept across all these different tools. You can find the contextually relevant and tangentially related concepts also with your search. And you have ultimately traceability. So you can have traceability of requirements through to your tests, requirements to your features, your epics, your use cases, etc. So in essence, overall, the benefits that we're talking about here, number one is, as you're going to see, these connectors come out of the box for the tools that you need, the tools you already have, excuse me, for example, Confluence and JIRA and GreenHopper. That's already ready to go. So when you download and install these and plug them in, you just do a couple small configurations and you've already got everything integrated bidirectionally. So you don't have to spend days or weeks or months integrating and maintaining the integration as well. It's done for you. Number two is you're guaranteeing consistency. So you're capturing your requirements and your features and your use cases in a very consistent way in a template. And that template is structured within the wiki and is integrated with your JIRA projects, with your JIRA tasks, etc. And number three there, this means because all of this is done in a very methodical fashion, in a very structured way, you can easily find information. You can find it via a faceted search. You can see traceability of how things are all interrelated. And you have reports and dashboards to see a high-level view of what's going on in a real-time manner. And then finally, this is extensible and future-proof. This is built on open standards, open source, and you're able to create new applications within this environment. Solutions that are analogous to requirements management or test case management. You can create new solutions within this environment if you want as well, or you can have zAgile help you do that. So the solutions that we have out of the box are listed here. I'll just list them very briefly. Today we're going to be focusing on the first one, Wikidsmart PM, standing for product management, but that's requirements management within Confluence integrated with JIRA and GreenHopper. We also have test case management. We also can integrate continuous integration and version control. We can also integrate Salesforce and, help desk and CRM. And we can also provide general dashboards of all the information if you just want the dashboards as well. That's listed down at the bottom. So with that, I think I'd like to, at this point, to hand it over to Sanjeev. He's going to have a few more slides on the overview of the concepts that we're talking about here today, and then he'll jump into a demo before handing it back to me. Sanjeev, are you there?
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Greetings, everyone, and let me just get to the starting point for my part of the discussion. So, Andrew, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Just want to unmute myself.
Okay, great. Thank you. So, as Andrew had pointed out, how does Wikidsmart fit into Agile practices? So, there's a number of different things to consider, particularly in the context of incorporating or adapting various agile methodologies. What's important to teams typically is the flexibility of process and practice. It's not adapting to a particular set of practices, for example. It's really about tailoring the practices to the culture, the needs of the team and the project. There's also flexibility of definition. So, and it's not just definition, but also to some extent tools. Uh, People typically want to not just have to resort to capturing features, epics, and stories in JIRA, for example, but potentially you may want to have requirements and use cases and design documents and architecture documents and so on that you also want to associate, various artifacts that you want to associate with your projects and various iterations. Same thing in terms of attributes. I mean, it is very likely that as business requirements are driving certain deliverables, then there's a need for capturing business case and risks and dependencies and so on. And those are things that also need to be visible across not just any a particular iteration, but across releases and across the life cycle for a particular product or release itself. And then, of course, there's the integration with tools and concepts. I mean, unless you're only using one tool to achieve all of your agile deliveries, it's important that various tools where you've defined everything from where the stakeholders are to where the requirements exist to where iterations are defined and managed. Those are all integrated so that everyone who's involved in the delivery cycle is able to have a cohesive view of what's happening. Then, of course, there's improved collaboration across teams. One of the bigger issues with Agile that we come across is product management being somewhat alienated or isolated from engineering. And the reason is because they use tools that are more comfortable for them, whether it's Microsoft Word or whether it's Confluence, Wiki, or any other, or Excel spreadsheets, for example. So typically they will have backlogs and stuff in these tools. And then, of course, development takes over and starts their iteration planning and management. However, the visibility isn't often there for product managers to know what's really happening and how any particular high-level feature that they may have defined relates to one or many iterations where it will be delivered, or even across releases. Then there's traceability. Traceability is really across all different aspects of a particular requirement. So from a product management perspective, there's everything from a requirement, who are all the stakeholders? What customers are driving a set of requirements or a particular requirement? Then it goes down to what are the test cases that are associated with the requirement? When have they been executed, which iteration, and so on. And also, of course, what stories and that have been associated with it, what are the development tasks for the requirement, which one have been completed. So as you're managing it at the requirement level, not necessarily at the iteration level or at the story level. And of course, then the last bit is search. So when you have distributed teams and they're all working on the same project, how are they able to find all these artifacts? Are they able to search effectively across tools to find what they need so that they can all be on the same page in terms of both deliverables and definitions? So those are some of the really core concepts that we focus on in integrating Wikidsmart with Agile methodologies and practices. And as Andrew had also talked about, I mean, if you look at our core focus right now, for example, is Confluence and JIRA in terms of integration, although we are integrating with Salesforce and Zendesk. So we're pretty much completing the full cycle from requirement initiation from a customer all the way to delivery and then tracking in terms of issues and tickets through support. But if you look at both Confluence and JIRA in terms of their strengths, Confluence itself, first of all, it has enterprise-wide deployment. It allows you to create content very easily, and of course share. It's a great collaborative tool, and it's accessible to everyone. So as opposed to, for example, Microsoft Word and Excel documents that tend to be shared in emails and stuff. So the idea behind using Confluence as a way to represent artifacts, provides both ease of use, but also fairly powerful capabilities, as we will show you shortly. Same thing with JIRA. I mean, it's a great issue tracker. I mean, it's there. There's about over 20,000 customers. You've got it. It has, along with GreenHopper, fairly good agile planning and management capabilities, and of course the workflow. So now between these two, then where do we come in? So first, you've got process and tool agnostic platform that Wikidsmart provides. You've got the Confluence that we will show you how you can use it for creating project artifacts. And of course, Wikidsmart integrates with JIRA, GreenHopper, Fisheye, GitHub, and a whole lot of different tools. And then we'll also show you some examples of traceability, search, and of course, the fact that you can actually import and export requirements and other artifacts. So if you happen to have a whole lot of test cases, requirements, use cases, and stuff in Excel or other tools, then you can import them into Confluence and then start to link them across your lifecycle. So now let's get to the demo, and we'll talk about some of the core capabilities of Wikidsmart through that. So let's the starting point for this, and again, we're gonna in the demo we'll give you the top-down view. The first thing is at the project level. So this is Confluence wiki. So we'll start with a project view. So one of the aspects of or manifestations of the integration here that you will see is that projects and any associated relationships that projects have, like releases and components and all of that, those are all captured from JIRA, and they can within our repository and within our graph database, and so they can now be shown within Confluence pages, or they are viewable almost anywhere just through queries. So here's a page that through a query is giving you a list of all the different projects that have been defined in JIRA, along with project lead and other information. So you can also from here start to take certain actions. For example, you can create a landing page or an anchor page for a project within Confluence. You can define features and requirements for the project, test specification document, any related artifacts you can create, as well as a release dashboard. So this is a templated view. It's very customizable, so you can add actions or remove them however you wish. However, we'll start here with just this particular project, so Agile Web, and we've created a project wiki page for it. So just to kind of show you how it starts to come together. So here's basically an anchor page for project for Agile Web. So here we may add certain attributes like description, business case, dependencies, and stuff. And then of course it will automatically start to capture any associated features and other artifacts that are defined for this project. So here, just as an example, we've created a feature called Chart Builder. So just to also talk about Confluence's capabilities for creating artifacts that could ultimately link to JIRA and GreenHopper, what you end up with is a form-based templates that are giving you various types of structures, and these are again customizable, so that you can add and you can basically create pages and content the way you want to, and based on what information you want to capture. So here, we can now let's move quickly to the feature and start from there. So one idea in terms of based on some of the practices that we've seen out there, is where people are able to capture high-level definitions along with other artifacts within Confluence that they can ultimately tie to GreenHopper and JIRA for for iteration planning and delivery. So here you're seeing a high-level feature called Chart Builder, where a product manager may capture summary, description, scope, benefits, etc. And there may be other artifacts that can be associated with it. And that's the other thing is, everybody comes to the same page, literally and figuratively, to look at, the full context of what this feature may be about. Now, the feature is linked back to the project because we started from there. Although if you were to create it independently, you can go and associate it with any other JIRA project, for example. And also you can define a category for it, whether it's general functional requirement or quality or security related or anything else. So once we've defined a feature, now there's a number of different possibilities here. You can, for example, create a JIRA story, you can create a related document, or create a test suite. So here you're seeing, again, it's not just about epics and stories and managing iterations, but you're seeing that you can start with much higher level definitions and then go from there, both in terms of associating them with iterations, but also linking them with other concepts within the lifecycle, which at the front end may include stakeholders, and at the back end may include support related tickets. So we can, for example, if we want to create a story in JIRA for this particular feature, we can simply just add some information to it, plan it for a particular release, for example. And then you can see, for instance, that this story is automatically linked back to the feature. So, within the context of GreenHopper and JIRA, you will still be able to see, for instance, in a classic view, if you would, at the release level and at the, for example, let's say here, all of the different stories that you're creating, as well as other bugs and stuff that are associated with this feature. So, and it's either at a feature level, or you can have multiple features and that are split across iterations or releases. But this starts to give you, the capability that you are already using for the sake of planning your iterations. But here is where your product managers are in terms of understanding at the feature level what what stories are created, what they're planned for, what specific tasks may be associated with them. So as you start to create artifacts, for example, or add artifacts to the feature, and like for example, here you've got a chart builder UI design document, for example. So here there's a document. It's associated with the feature. It has authors and reviewers, and of course you can create rich text. Use the rich text capability of Confluence to add images and other capabilities. And so now when you come back to the feature itself, you'll see now you've got you're building a much more comprehensive view or context, if you would, associated with it. But at the same time, you also have the context of the actual iteration within JIRA and GreenHopper. So here there's a story, and the story is basically in this case would be a lower level definition or breakdown of the feature into implementable units, if you would. And then each story can have subtasks that are actually assigned to developers for implementation. So this is one scenario. I mean, there's a number of different ways you can actually tie these things together. But here's just one example of how high-level definitions can exist within Confluence, but they're still integrated within the context of Agile practices, for example, or Agile management of iterations and sprints. Now, the idea here, as you kind of go through and start planning this and or defining high-level components, for example, is that you can, at any point in time, have this cohesive view. So if you were to look at still within Confluence as a product manager, you were to look at the feature and all of its sort of context, you can get this property view, if you would, that is dynamically generated, which will give you a summary, all the related artifacts, all the stories, approval tasks, development tasks, test suites, any reported bugs. So this is where it becomes relevant, because even at a feature level, you can start to trace the full context of what's happening. And it's not just anymore about a particular iteration or release, but it's really at the level of the feature and requirements. So this is where Wikidsmart's integration with Jira and Confluence comes into play in a fairly powerful way in terms of providing capabilities for people to be able to manage, from a product perspective, the whole delivery all the way down, regardless of what iterations or releases it ends up in. Now, let's look at a few more things here. So besides just this particular feature definition and stuff, some of the other things that we want to show as examples of this integration are even at the project level. For example, here's a landing page that we've created for the project, but we provide, for instance, a tree widget that you can insert, customize and insert on any page. And in this case, at the project level, it's giving me all the features associated with the project. And then for any particular feature, it automatically will generate the stories that have been assigned and any story tasks that are assigned for developers. So this is just a simple example of how you can start to assemble this cohesive view in so many different ways. I mean, you can create it in via views in tables. You can also have this type of tree view. So if I'm managing at a project level, or even at a release level for that matter, I can have this type of navigation capability. So I know exactly where all the things are that are associated with a particular release or project. Now, the other thing we will also show you, for example, is for instance, there's in some examples of traceability. So well, in this particular case, you can start to see that as you're defining both releases and iterations, they're also automatically available within Confluence itself. So here, I've got this view where I can see at the releases that are defined in Jira for this particular project, and then I can also create dashboards for each release. And these dashboards are basically templated pages, so the information that they will have will be automatically generated. However, it will give you basically an instant view of all of the context that you want to look at as your release planning continues. So if you're for example, a release manager, and you just want to create your own sort of views within Confluence pages, then this is one way you can do that, where all information will be automatically pulled in, as opposed to having to assemble it manually for weekly triage and reporting purposes. And now some additional examples that we will also talk about is, for example, here, this is completely a different flow. I mean, this is an obfuscated view here, but this is a use case that in this particular implementation that we did is associated, or can be associated with, a lot of different requirements. So now you can actually do a lot more with it in terms of a much more complex set of relationships, because you've got this particular page represents a use case, and then this table represents a lot of different requirements that it could be associated with. So it will show all the requirements that are linked to this use case. And then for any particular requirement, you'll have an acceptance test. And then you also have stories, for example, so that you can actually get a full view of whether that pairing of use case and requirement, meets the acceptance criteria, and then what are all the different stories that have been associated with its implementation, and what's the status of those stories. So now you're actually taking a much more complex view of how you're defining your artifacts within Confluence itself in terms of requirements and use cases, as well as acceptance criteria, and then tracking the implementation of those through iterations using GreenHopper and JIRA. So I think these are some of the basic examples that we wanted to show. The other thing we will also talk about is, for example, search. So Wikidsmart offers search, as we had discussed before, where what you can do basically is, whether you're in Confluence and JIRA, the search capability essentially allows you to look for anything. Basically, you can say, for example, I want to look for JIRA features, or this would be features that are defined in JIRA. You can also look for features that you may have defined within Confluence itself. So the search here becomes very, very precise, because at any point in time, you can say what concept that you really want to look for. Now, as for example, here we've looked for, or we're searching for features that are defined within Confluence. So not only do we get just the list of the features that are there, but we also will get other contextual information related to these features. So let's say that I want to actually look for something more specific. So here Wikidsmart issue creation is a feature, or web services and mobile SDK is a feature. But now it will also tell me what are the specific use cases defined for this feature. It will tell me what project it is associated with, and then who defined it. So I will get a lot more contextual information, as not just the fact that I'm doing keyword searches and it returns content, which is the more traditional search paradigm. And then furthermore, I can go into a power search mode, where not only can I specify a specific concept that I'm looking for, but I can also become much more precise in terms of its attributes. So I can look for a specific feature that has an associated JIRA issue, or a specific feature that is under verification, or deferred, or whatever. So I mean, you can be much more specific as you're searching. And then the last thing is that the search model is the same in JIRA and Confluence. So it really doesn't matter what application or tool that you are actually searching from, but the view that you get is exactly the same. And then finally, the other thing we also want to talk about here is coming back to traceability, which is again really important. So one of the things that you can do here in using the templates and the customizability of templates is that you can actually version the templates, the requirements and use cases and other artifacts that you create in Confluence itself, so that as they are being implemented across iterations, it's easy to track whether or not the definitions have changed since the implementation. So here's an example where both in terms of use cases and requirements, it will actually list out anything where the requirement, when it was defined, when it was being implemented, was version 3. Or actually, sorry, the requirement is currently version 3, but when it was implemented, it was an earlier version. So that simply means that something about the requirement has changed in terms of its definition. And so the implementation may be outdated. And so those are the types of exceptions that you can create just to track and make sure that the development team is still in sync with changes that are happening at the product level. So I think that pretty much is for the demo. Andrew, I will turn it back to you.
Okay, thank you. Fantastic job. So let's see. Okay, so just a couple more slides to wrap up. So again, Wikidsmart is all about being pragmatic, flexible, and powerful. So you can manage your requirements as Confluence-based artifacts and integrate it in with JIRA and the rest of the software project lifecycle. And those dashboards within Confluence are pulling content from JIRA and from other systems. So it's important to point out, when you look at the content that Sanjeev was showing within the wiki, much of that was generated automatically, just pulling content from within Confluence and from within from JIRA, and creating, for example, the list of projects and the status of projects, etc. So the content itself for requirements, of course, is created within those structured forms. So the bottom line here is you're achieving ultimate interoperability between Confluence and JIRA, again with GreenHopper as well, so that you're achieving consistency, traceability, reporting, dashboards, and faceted search for all the integrated content. So everything you've seen here is open source, so you can download it and use it today as you wish. Make sure to follow the online instructions. Register for the online documentation from our website. Make sure you follow very specific versions, maintenance versions of JIRA and Confluence to install and use. And then we can support you, of course, for any version of your product within production. But for your evaluation purposes, we ask that you follow the versions very carefully there for the eval. So we offer annual support subscriptions, so you can secure your project to make sure everything's running at peak performance. And we offer services, of course, to fast track your projects. So and you're able to follow, or we offer the solutions, of course, in best practices in using Wikidsmart. We also offer jump starts or proof of concepts. So over a course of 3 to 5 days, we can sit down with you and understand what exactly you'd like to achieve, and we can isolate some specific short-term wins that you'd like within a several-day time period. And once that's proven out to you, then you can move forward with the annual subscription. Of course, we also can provide new connectors for whatever systems you have internally as well. So just to make sure that everything is integrated, no matter what kinds of tools and applications you have. So that concludes the webinar. I want to thank everyone for your time. If you have questions, please be sure to email them to us. You can reach us at info@zagile.com. That's info@zagile.com, zagile.com. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day. Bye-bye.